Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the CCM AS-V Pro snapshot review. So obviously this is not my glove. I am borrowing it from a local store. So I can't do tests really on it and use it on ice and shoot pucks at it like I did in some previous gloves. But we're going to talk about this because this has some tech on it, specifically this Nest tech that I think is really interesting. I really like what CCM is doing for this and the reasoning behind it, which I think is really interesting. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to do the fit test, and we're just going to kind of go into this glove and compare it to, these are pro stock gloves, but we'll compare it to some of the old like Tacks line of gloves and kind of just see what CCM's going here and kind of talk a little bit about some Bauer comparables. For all that, if you want us to help support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment, please check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, to Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase will give me a kickback so I can buy more gear and do more reviews. I'd love to do a full review on this, but I can't buy every piece of equipment that comes out, so here we are. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out the links in the description too. Buy me a coffee and Patreon. Everything, again, through those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content. This glove is obviously the Tacks line, as you can see right there. It doesn't say Super Tacks anymore, it just says Tacks. This has been a pretty big family and a long-lasting family, and you probably have seen these gloves, well, not these gloves specifically, but Tacks gloves specifically in the NHL a lot. This glove is extremely popular still in the NHL. This is the Ultra Tacks. After the Ultra Tacks came the Super Tacks, which is this one, which kind of deviated a bit and opened the cuff up a bit. After this one, they went with the AS-1, which basically brought upon this cuff right here. It was a pretty good glove, but I wasn't a huge fan of what they did with the cuff on that compared to this one. I just like the split cuff a little bit more than the full round cuff. I don't have one of those on me, so can't show that off right now. And then after the AS-1, which was more of this cuff and just slightly redesigned backhand, we come to the AS-V. So here's that whole CCM naming convention thing that's really confusing because they release sticks every year and they don't release protector every year. You skip lines like it went from AS-1 to AS-5. So yeah, that's annoying. Anyways, you see a lot of these in the NHL. You see some of these in the NHL, not a ton. There's a lot of these in the AHL though, which is interesting. This glove was specifically from the Hartford Wolfpack, and it's a fantastic glove. I really like it. So we're going to move away from all those pro stock gloves for a little bit though and go on to this glove and show off some of the features on this glove. CCM, I have to give credit for this pretty nice gold colorway. Not a ton of teams are going to use this. Obviously it's sort of Vegas, but I mean, for retail, it's kind of surprising that they went like this, and I love this color. I think it looks really nice and unique. Anyways, we look on here and you have your PU leather right here for details, which when you look at pro stock gloves, you rarely have any of that on there. It's more just this Tough Tech and nylon. Both this material right here and this material can be seen, but usually it is just the single, as you can see, material right there. And then you have some accent colors right here as well. Nothing crazy. 3-piece index and middle finger, which is, again, I'm a fan of this when companies don't remove this, where some companies have removed the 3 pieces and gone to 2. So nice that that's still a 3-piece. 2 pieces everywhere else. And then you have a crazy backhand, which we'll kind of get to in 1 second. And you just have your big cuff with the new CCM letters I know everyone absolutely hates. The cuff inside is also, it doesn't have like a stretch or anything. It's just a full padded piece all the way through, which I think is a good thing, and it is 1 piece all the way through like that. I think this could be a little bit like if this was cut open, and if you want to unstitch this yourself, you get a little bit more flex, kind of like something like this to open that up a little bit more, but it's kind of a nitpick. This glove is very open anyways, as you can see, and you go on to the bottom with, you just have a normal undercuff with segments, so it moves a bit better. So we'll get to the very interesting stuff on here, and that is this D3O basically shot blocker. And we've seen Bauer use this on the Vapor gloves now, where it's basically a big blocker on top, and it's like a piece of plastic. If it's a piece of plastic on Bauer, this has D3O in there, and you can see the orange right through there. The interesting thing is it's actually plastic right here on top of the D3O, and then the plastic stops, so you can see the D3O, and then it covers back here. So the reason this is on here is because you have that Nest tech on the inside, which we'll talk about in 1 second. And that Nest tech back there does obviously need a protective piece as well, because it is a little bit exposed right there. So that plate helps with that. But this does have more material underneath right here. And as you can see, there is no plastic insert under here. It's just a soft foam. And I guess the logic behind this, is for lighter weight and everything. You have the plastic up here for protection, but that is a bit disappointing to me, and that is what Bauer did on their new Hyperlight gloves as well. Instead of having a double piece of plastic protection, like if you had this piece right here with plastic and D3O, and then the plastic inserts down here, and even this plastic insert right here stops right there where the plate will cover it basically. If you had that all the way through, you would have basically extra protection and more protection and good protection. That's kind of what you want a block in like a plate like this, similar to what this is, which this is what this was opened up. You want that there to give you extra protection, but CCM didn't do that for the retail model, and that's a bit disappointing. I get why they didn't do that, and they just left it as kind of what it was in the past, but I feel like they could have gone just that one step higher and made it better than what like just a retail glove is, but they didn't. Now, the foam package on this is like a soft density foam right there. It does feel like it has D3O in there. I'm not sure if it is. I haven't read any of the marketing materials, but it definitely does feel like it has D3O on the top layer, and then your plastic inserts. And again, those plastic inserts are a big thing. Gloves that don't have plastic inserts are simply not as protective. You can stiff it with foams, but if you put a plastic insert on top of that foam, it's going to be more protective. So while I wish this was D3O all the way through, like these Pro Sock gloves are, where that is one chunky D3O piece and then a plastic piece on top, I understand why they don't, because these gloves are a lot heavier than what this is, and at the retail market, unfortunately, weight like that is one of the big selling points, which also gives a reason why they took the foot plastic out of here. I still think it could be a better glove, but I get why they do it. Unfortunately, I still wish their top end model was basically a Pro Sock glove, and then the one below was what more people would buy. Or if they want to go crazy with tech and do it like the AS-V was all the Pro Sock one, basically, and the top one is the crazy tech stuff. That would be kind of cool too. This is protective enough for a retail glove. I did a slash test on here and on the back and everything, and it was protective enough, and it was like fine. It was okay. I did feel some through the top here going into that kind of nest tech area and where the less padding was there, which was interesting. I felt like I would feel less of that just because there is kind of like a gap under there, but I did feel that, so that was kind of interesting and a little disappointing. But overall, they're not bad for foam package and protection and everything. And you do have nice pinky protectors right there, not the tiny things that you see on some companies, and you have that 3-piece on the index finger as well. So before we get to the nest tech again, because I'm kind of teasing that, we will go into the liner, which you can see this interesting Tacks kind of camouflage pattern on the inside here. And you can kind of see part of that point of that nest tech is this ventilated backhand liner. So you can see these holes kind of, I don't know how they're put in there, but these holes cut out of that backhand liner so you can get better airflow straight into the nest tech, which I'm trying to get that on camera and show it. You can see right there. So there's a cutout of foam for it in there as well. So kind of interesting in that regards. As well, on the inside, you can see it's sprayed with Polygiene to help with odor management and everything like that. I'm not going to the marketing for it, but it's supposed to make it so it doesn't smell as bad and it kills bacteria. Then on the thumb, you have a flex thumb, as you can see, and it kind of stops with hyperextension as well. It's been like that for a while and it continues and it's still solid. So another part on the backhand is you can see, because of how this plate is and the cuff, it's kind of cut around the cuff, it doesn't really flex over, which is a bit disappointing, where a real good back, like flexing cuff will slide over and give you some more mobility there. This one, not really the case. You can kind of see it on, well, CCM's not the best for this, but it does go a little bit more on this one, as you can see how it kind of rolls over a little bit, but you don't really have that on here, which is a bit disappointing. As well as the cuff is pretty open, as you can see, but it doesn't, like, it flexes that way and a little bit of that way. But again, if this was open up, kind of like this one was, you can see it opens more and it really allows your hand to flex more. So I wish that was there as well. But on the under cuff, it does move a bit more because it does have that extra segment. So it goes like that, and it's elastic right there. So it does move a little bit with your cuff. It's not like, it's not the best, it's not the worst. If you want to really loosen that up, you can do what they do here, where they cut that one side and it's opened up more, right? But nothing, like, it's fine. It's very retail-esque of gloves. Moving on to the palm, you can see their AX suede palm, but with this camo pattern that kind of transferred over from here. And it's an interesting palm. I'm not totally sure why they went with a camo pattern besides the looks. I don't think it's necessary at all. The thing that I find kind of interesting is when you feel the inside of the glove right here, it's a lot smoother than it is on the outside. So I definitely feel like that camo pattern is kind of Maybe it's a little bit for protection even, but you can definitely feel a difference on it between your hands. It's much softer on the inside than it is on the outside, which I guess is fine since the inside is the part that actually touches your hand. Then they have another little overlay right here. Basically, these are like marketing things at this point with whatever they say, Dural Palm Pro. So you have, but that overlay will give you extra palm life just because it is a double layer in there. You can see how you have your normal one, and then the darker spot right here is where the overlay is. And continuing on the palm, when we look at our standard grip test, we have this textured grip from a Bauer stick, and when you run your hands along it, it honestly feels pretty like thick, and it's a lot thicker than I was expecting it to be, especially because it's an AX suede. So I really think the palm material, you can kind of see some of the fuzz coming up on it. So it's kind of like that design is basically like, I don't know if it's coming off, but you can definitely feel it thicker than what I was kind of expecting it to be. I can still feel the details on the stick, but especially the palm feels a lot thicker than I was expecting, and the thumb too, because that piece does go all up there. And like when I run just the thumb on it, you can barely feel the texture. The fingers, you can still feel the texture fine, but pretty surprising on this palm just how it doesn't really feel that thin. I think they're going for more of a durability standpoint on this than pure like feel, because even these Pro gloves, which, well, it's the wrong one, like I can feel a lot more on the fingertips and on the thumb. Even though the thumb still is 2 layers, you can feel a lot more on this glove than you can on the tack. So kind of interesting choices that they went with that. I know one of the big things on retail though is all durability of palms. Well, I love my digital palms like this. I understand at a retail point they're not really that good because people blow out palms at the the first thing that goes on a glove. So maybe putting some durability on here isn't an awful thing. I do love how they use the Kevlar still on their lower gloves, which is a huge thing for durability because that Kevlar is not going to rip apart nearly as much. Now, one of my absolute favorite features of this glove is the gussets. So I'm going to pretend that someone at CCM has listened to me and talk about Nash and spandex gussets. This is one of the best combinations of gussets that you can basically get. You have your spandex gussets for comfort and also just for fit, so it just moves better with your hand and everything. But then you have Nash tips right here, so you don't get the finger blowout. So these are 14 gloves, so my fingers would be kind of blowing out of here, but they feel like they stop at the end, so that's kind of a nice thing. The interesting thing is, because it's not Nash all the way to the palm, you can see right there it's spandex, when you actually wear them, it does pull down a bit. So it is kind of interesting too, so it does give you a little bit of pull down there and flex down there. Like you notice it when I'm like that, you can see it flexing a little bit. Personally, I wish that was just Nash all the way through, but coming from what I know of the Nest Tech and everything, I think there's a purpose to this, so I'll talk about that in 1 second as well. That gusset design and everything with the Nash and spandex is really nice seeing on the actual retail gloves. We've seen it on some other companies now, so it's nice CCM went there too. I think this is a great design and it's a really good feature to have. And you always see the Pro Stock gloves like this one having that as well, where this is spandex and that is a Nash. So before we jump into the actual 3D hand fit test on this, we are going to talk about the thing that's really interesting to me on this glove. It is the Nest Tech. So I've been going on about Nest Tech in that since their helmet came out, the Super Tacks X, I now have a custom Super Tacks X thanks to CCM, which I'll be doing a full review very shortly. So I love this material and the idea behind this material. So there is Nest Tech in here. So now let me give you a bit of an overview of why this exists and how I know why this exists and kind of the reason for it. I was lucky enough to be invited to CCM's hockey house, which was a big thing at this house with the outdoor rink at the Rink of Dreams, where they let people come in and check out gear, stuff like that. And there's a bunch of influencers there. Somehow I ended up becoming one of those influencers that was invited. But instead of talking to any of the influencers or anything like that, I tried to find the engineers and the scientists, yes, scientists behind CCM, and talk to them and kind of pick their brains and stuff like that. The awesome thing about that is I found the exact person that I needed to talk to. Someone who works in the CCM lab for the innovation and tech and all that stuff. I specifically said to him, why does the AS-V glove have Nest Tech in it? Specifically, why is it there? What is the point of it? Like, I love that this tech is being used, but I don't really think that this is totally utilizing the ability, like what this would be great for. I think it could have better usage. I think this was almost like an afterthought. And I was like, why would you put it there for glove? Like, who cares about breathability? Now, that's the thing. Who cares about breathability? Personally, I've had maybe 2 gloves I've ever felt were too warm. And I've never really had issues with gloves when playing and stuff like that. This is where the very interesting part comes into play and where this gets nerdy and very sciencey. And it's almost it's actually, and it's over my head. So I'm going to try to explain this a little bit, but I don't have any proof for it. According to what I was told, so with thermoregulation of the body, your hands being cool actually helps decrease your body temperature. It allows you to perform at high intensity for longer. So the cooler your hands, the longer you can perform. The whole idea of this is cooling the hands. Now, I don't think that this would be the ultimate practice and this is like the best end result, but the idea behind here is amazing. I really like that. You definitely can feel the air come through here and come through the backhand with those segments. My test was just honestly blowing air through it and seeing if you can feel it better, and you can. But you also notice that on some parts right here. When my hand is holding the stick and the spandex is exposed, the spandex breathes better than what the Nash does. Now, I think they could have done an approach with the Nash where you cut holes in the tips just like here, so you kind of get that like result as well, but the spandex does that there and gives you a bit more comfort. The palms also have perforations on them, I'm assuming to help that as well. So while I don't think that this is the ultimate glove for that and is really the ultimate solution, and this is like kind of the best implementation, the idea behind it is awesome, also very sound, and it is backed by science. I just think they have to do some more improvements to get there, but it is an interesting application of Nest Tech, and I'm really excited to see what CCM decides to do in the future to kind of make that go the next step. I think if they added something, I think lower and like right here, so your hands are always closed on your sticks, and also lower like right here because your hands are always closed on your sticks. If you had a way to add venting basically right in here and allow air, especially when you're skating, your hands are moving like that, it would go in there a lot better than it would go up here. This almost kind of works as a venting system, as you can see, but it's not quite that, but air would kind of scoop in there. The other place I think they could like maybe add a vent is like on the side right here, and maybe even on like right here basically. So if they somehow figure a way to kind of put a little gap there, maybe some Nest Tech so that air will go right through on both these. Because when you are skating like this, when your stick's not like this obviously, and you're skating like this, that will be the air going directly kind of through it right there. And that way it wouldn't have to go like in that way, it would just be going through the sides to allow air to go through there to help with the cooling. But this is an interesting idea. It's backed by science, which is what I love. I obviously can't prove any of this. I don't have any of that details. And I don't have a background in education in science, but I can kind of understand it. And the person I talked to at CCM did an excellent job of discussing this. And it made me very excited for what was to come. And that is one of the reasons why I want to show this glove off, because of how interesting I find this Nest Tech and the idea behind it. Now, finally, we get to the 3D hand test. And remember, this is a 14-inch hand and this is a 15-inch hand. So this is closest to me. And this is just what would fit a normal 14-inch gloves. These are 14-inch gloves. So we'll throw these in here and you'll get an idea of how they fit. So on the right glove, we have the 15-inch hand and you can see it in there. And you can see it is definitely going past the tips right there. And that spandex is allowing it to kind of stretch past, as you can see. So that obviously 15 hand is big in the 15 glove. And when we look at the 14 glove, which makes sense, you can see everything is right snug where it should be. This one is a little bit close to the edge, but this one isn't. And we have basically that much of gap in there, and it's still on the edge. It's just not quite set up perfectly, but it is basically right there. And same with on this one, you do have it right on the end, but not blowing out. Comparatively, you can definitely see those index finger, the differences on how far this one is down here versus this one, which does have a little bit on there. So these fit totally true to size. A 14 is a 14, and not like their pro stocks where this one is a 14 and this one is big. This fits my hand, it's a 15, which is these gloves are too small. This one fits it fine. So these are true to size 14s. Fit profile on this is always super confusing because CCM, in my opinion, labels their fit profiles for gloves really poorly. And this is basically a comparable to a Bauer Vapor, just to put it bluntly. It's kind of loose on it. Even this, which is like fits bigger because it's a pro stock, it basically fits like a 14.5. This is their tighter fitting glove, but this fits like bigger than this glove does. This is tighter than what this glove is. So the Tacks have always been a pretty loose fitting glove. And for example, it's just a loose fitting glove. It's not the Supreme comparable, which is that tight fitting. That tight fitting Supreme is the jet speed line. This one is the more loose line where it's kind of snug in the fingertips, but it opens up in the backhand and everything. And it is kind of loose. So if you want a more tight fitting glove, this isn't for you. If you like that vapor style fit, this might be for you. Or if you've been in 4 rolls forever and want to try something more atomical cut, this also might be for you in that sense. Overall, these gloves are extremely interesting. whether it be just for what might come in the future, but it is basically one of those, like, it does seem like it's one of those protective pieces that is the first step in CCM really making gear with a science backing to it, which I think is very awesome. I'm not just talking protection tests, I'm talking science. They're looking at the thermodynamics of humans, which is really cool. So this is an interesting glove. It's a solid glove. It's still like good protection all around. It could be a bit better. It has awesome gusset features. The palm's pretty comfortable inside. It's not the best on the outside, but hopefully it's more durable. It's just solid overall, but I think this is a very interesting stepping stone glove. I think it is a solid glove. If you need a new glove, by all means, look at it. So if you want that more vapor fitting glove, it's a solid option from CCM, and I definitely like what CCM is doing with this line compared to what Bauer is with the vapor, where they're kind of feels like they're cheapening everything, where this is actually, Nestec is more expensive to use than just normal foams. Remember that. So that is kind of cool what CCM is doing here, and I appreciate it. And I think it's a decent glove all around for retail. It's obviously not their pro stocks, which are just a next level, but I would have no issues really using this. It's just not the best at everything. It's just solid all around with some very interesting tech. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you thought this was a little bit interesting, like as interesting as I find this glove and the tech behind it. I think it's really cool what CCM is doing, and I really hope to see like where tech equipment goes down that line. I'm obviously a big fan of gear changes and like small tweaks and stuff to make something better and better. So it's really interesting to see. I think basically the starting point of something pretty interesting. We'll see down the line how it goes, but CCM has a pretty decent glove here. I don't really know if we'll see this in the NHL just because it's a little too tech heavy for stuff that you'll see, and like even the Super Tacks barely made it, and I haven't seen any really AS1s in the NHL, so I don't know if this will really make its way there, but it's a solid retail glove. So I mean, try it on, see what you like. Let me know your thoughts on this Nestec, and if you like the idea of science being behind all the different equipment decisions, something I'm really excited about. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Remember to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing more reviews and doing real tests on stuff, and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy and Pure Hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback. Help support the channel so I can keep making more videos and doing more gear reviews. Otherwise, check out Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything helps. I have to buy all this gear to make this content, and it is expensive, so it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.